wrap up of Venezuela. What happened to all those people we helped anyway? And a look forward at what's coming up next. That's right here on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. I am back in my studio at home and it's a mess. It got all taken apart while I was gone, so it's going to take me a little bit to get it all put back together. But in the meantime, I just wanted to give you a quick wrap up of my trip to Venezuela. As I said yesterday in this podcast, it's very emotionally draining to be on a mission like that because you're just surrounded by so many people that need help and need so much help. And I just don't have unlimited resources. So we helped a lot of people. We helped all the people we could. And part of the reason we were there was to kind of work out a way to help even more people, to go from helping in the dozens to helping in the thousands. And that's what we did. So I went out with a team from Operation Blessing. We got there, I was there over a week and started making assessments of what the need was and where the need was greatest and how could we help. And then kind of went from there, talking to people who were on the ground, going around and talking to Venezuelans, and of course, almost getting kidnapped and that whole thing. But anyway, what I decided to do for the podcast was just choose some people that I could help. Just choose some people that God put in front of me. Don't try to help everybody, but just help a few, and not just give them a little bit that would get them through to tomorrow. We did that with a lot of people too, but pick a few people and really try to change their lives. Really try to just get them to the next level, the next place they needed to go, to get them out of the kind of desperate situation that they were in. And that's what we did. So we picked those four. There's actually more, but let's talk first about the four girls we picked. There was Wendy and Jessica and Oris. That's Oris Melis is her full name, but she goes by Oris. And Maria, and she's the one that had the little baby, and the little baby's name was like Akbar or something like that I didn't make sense to me as a name, so I couldn't remember it. But it's absolutely precious little baby. Oh my goodness. And all four of them were sleeping on the street right at the crossing point. So that's probably the worst place because it's the most crowded. It's just absolute chaos down there. There's so many Venezuelans coming across, about 40,000 people a day crossing the river now, and really being victimized by the cartels, the colectivos, they call them, on the other side. Apparently, what I'm told is that Maduro took his troops off of that border because so many of them were defecting, coming across and giving themselves up, going over to Juan Guaido. So he took his troops off the border. He let a bunch of prisoners out of jail and went to these biker gangs that are loyal to him and said, you guys go to the border. Your pay is anything you can take or steal or charge from people down there. That's how you'll get paid. And so those guys are there just absolutely just victimizing everybody they see. And the problem is, if Maduro goes away tomorrow, like I said yesterday, I think, it's not going to be over, because if the military is on the side of the new president, those gangs are not going to want to give up control. And they've got military weapons, and they're organized, and they've got now a lot of money. And so it's not going to be pretty, whatever happens. Okay. So we picked these four girls. We took them shopping. We kind of hired them. I kind of hired them to help some other people rather than just handing them some money or something like that. They came with me to the grocery store. We went shopping. You saw that episode. If you haven't, go see it. It's awesome. They just had a great time. And then we took it out to this family with 9 children that was also sleeping on the street and gave them the diapers and medicines and groceries and little things for the kids, cold milk and things like that they probably hadn't had in a while. And the girls absolutely loved giving that stuff away. They had so much fun. So then I rewarded them by you cashing in some of my Hilton Honors points and putting them up in a hotel for the night. Several of them had never been in a hotel. They were extremely excited about the elevator ride. I thought that was funny. There's some. They ran all over that hotel. They just had a great time that night and into the next day. And while we were there, I told them, look, there's a couple of computers here. Get on the computers, do some research, figure out what you want to do next. Let's get you guys off the street for good. And I put out the call on social media to you guys watching, and a lot of people responded, and we raised enough money to really change their lives. So Maria and her baby and Wendy were both from the same area, Valencia in Venezuela. They decided they wanted to go back home. So we gave them what they needed to get them back home. Now, that turned into an absolute fiasco. I'll just explain it in short form here. But Wendy, I asked her, what's the best way for me to give you money? I've got Colombian pesos and I've got US dollars. What's better in Venezuela? And she said, well, dollars are definitely better in Venezuela. They're like the gold standard. So I gave her the money she needed. It was like $40 to get her bus ride home. She crossed into Venezuela. She went to the bus station and she tried to change that money into Venezuelan money so she could pay for her bus tickets. And somebody said, where'd you get that money? And she said, well, I got it in Colombia. And they said, we're not going to change that over here. We're not going to accept that, which is weird because normally they'd be very happy to accept US dollars. And Wendy, I don't think she really kind of got, I don't know if she's done it, but she's 17. She hadn't been around a whole lot. So she was like, oh, okay. They said, you got to go back into Colombia to change that money. She said, oh, okay. So she started to cross back across the border. Well, apparently the person that was supposed to be the money changer called the colectivos and told them, hey, there's this girl coming. She's got US dollars. When she got to the border, they grabbed her and they said, we want your money. Well, thank God we were all praying for Wendy, because at that moment, a friend of hers showed up who was a very, I would call her a firecracker, another lady, but a very strong-willed lady. She saw that they had grabbed Wendy and she went over and just went crazy on them. In Panama, we'd say she went rakataka on them. And Wendy was able to run off and get away with her friend. So they didn't take her money, but they really scared her badly. And so she called me back across on the Colombian side and said, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck here now. And I'm afraid to go back across into Venezuela because they know who I am now. They're going to rob me or worse. And so I went back down there and I picked her up. And so now let me jump over to Oris and Jessica's story. They're sisters. And they wanted to go to Pereira, which is on the other side of Colombia, because they have family there. You paid for them to get bus tickets. And it was like $160 for the two of them, $180, something like that, for the two of them to get their bus tickets, because it's all the way the other side of Colombia. And they were going to leave early in the morning, yesterday morning, to go and get on the bus and go make that bus journey. We took some of the extra money we had. We went and bought them some new clothes because everything they had was just threadbare and dirty and ripped and torn. And they were very embarrassed to be even seen walking around in the mall or anywhere like that in the clothes that they had. And so for another 30 or 40 bucks, I went out and bought them each a couple pairs of nice clothes and some shoes so that they'd have some decent clothes to travel in. That, again, was due to the largesse of the people who watch this podcast. So thank you very much from Oris and Wendy and Jessica. We're going to stay in the city. I wanted to put them up in the city so that they could be near the bus station, get on the bus early in the morning and go. So I got another hotel room, but I didn't want to spend a lot of money getting a super nice hotel room. So I got them a safe hotel, a nice hotel that was much, much cheaper than the Hampton Inn where I was staying. So it didn't cost very much at all. We got one room and put the two girls up in there. But then when Wendy found out, when we found out what happened to Wendy, I drove back out and picked Wendy up and brought her over and let her stay there again too. I couldn't find Maria. She was out there somewhere. I think she had gotten a place to stay that night, so she wasn't on the street with her baby. Anyway, Wendy and the other two sisters stayed there that night. The next morning, I picked Wendy up, took her back to the border so that she could get across. And that's when Maria decided she was going to go across with her. But then we found out that the bridge they wouldn't be allowed to cross on the bridge. We had thought that maybe we could talk them into letting these girls cross at the bridge, but they wouldn't. The bridge was not letting anybody across that day. So she said, well, I'll just stay here and sleep on the ground for another 2 weeks until they open the bridge, or whichever comes first. And I was like, no, not happening, nothing doing. So I got Wendy and Maria in touch with some pastor friends in Cucuta, where I went to church on Sunday, and they said, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. And the pastor said that her husband would, he has a store across in Venezuela, and he's able to cross without too many problems at all. So the pastor would have her husband go pick up Wendy and Maria and the baby and take them across the river, the illegal route, and get them in safely, make sure they got on the bus, and send them off home. That will hopefully happen this morning, the morning you're watching this podcast. And so please be praying for Wendy and Maria and that little baby, because they've got a very tough, they're going back to what they tried to escape from, because it was just so bad right there. And they don't have any family to go to in Colombia like the other two girls did. And they just didn't have much in the way of options. But I was able to, I gave her some extra money, and I said, the living wage the average wage where she comes from in Venezuela is like $4 a month. So with $50, she and her whole family can survive for several months, and hopefully within several months, they'll have a new president in Venezuela and things will be getting better. So that was the best I could do for her. We prayed for her, we sent her off, and I'm hoping that she's on the bus as I speak right now, and she's on her way home. We'll keep praying for that. The other two girls made their 20-plus hour bus ride, and just recently, I just got back from the airport, got a text from them saying we made it. They sent pictures and said, we're here, and thank you so much. They are so, so grateful for what you've done for them. You've really changed people's lives on this trip. Operation Blessing got their stuff all arranged, got their supplies coming in, and on, I guess, Tuesday was their first day of distribution. And they went out to the area where the walkers are going by on that road going to Bogota, and started handing out food and water and socks. And they had a team of doctors that did medical care for everybody. They prayed with everybody. They really did a great job at meeting the needs of those people. The thing that really got me about all those people that are walking is just how many mothers with children there are. And I just wanted to say, where are the fathers? Where are the fathers? You ask them and they just go, the father's not around. I wish that I could say that I'm appalled that Venezuelan men are that way. In reality, I'm appalled that so many men around the world are that way. They are very happy to procreate, but they're not men enough to actually take care of their own children. They're not man enough to support the woman who bore their children. They're not man enough to protect and provide and give affection to the woman who would be happy to grow old with them and make them happy and share life with them. You know, those men are the ones who are missing out. The women are suffering and the children are suffering, but it's the men who are missing out. Now, I did meet one family that had the father there and a whole bunch of kids, and they were marching along, and they were the happiest family ever. And I just want to show you the video from that, because the guy was absolutely photobombing me the entire time I was trying to do my stand-up with this funny little Elmo doll, and you just got to see this.
You know, they say if you want to understand somebody that you should really walk a mile in their shoes. And so that's what I'm doing out here on this highway, very busy road, is walking with this Venezuelan family with a bunch of children. This is all one family. They're walking from the border all the way to Bogota, about 500 kilometers. The problem with walking a mile in somebody's shoes is that so many of these people are really walking without shoes, or maybe just in flip-flops. And so Operation Blessing has set up a point up ahead that will help these people with medical care and food and water and love in the form of prayer and other materials. And that's really what it's all about, helping these people just because we love them. We don't have to agree with their politics. We don't have to agree with their reasons for doing this. We don't have to, really understand all the complexities of that. We just love them.
Okay, so that is what we have for today, folks. It was a very long and not arduous for me, just draining for me trip. So I'm going to try to just rest and recharge over the weekend. And then next week, I'm trying to get to the border with New Mexico, because there are some interesting things happening there. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow on the podcast. So thanks for watching. I'm Chuck Holton, and this has been The Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.